So how can you get started? So let's say that the idea here is, we want to find out a way to engage with our audience, customers, members. We kind of consolidated our framework down into something that you could apply within your own organizations. And like I said, you'll be able to download all the templates and you can actually bring them into your boardroom and do a workshop yourselves. And as I was kind of working through these templates, I was thinking, what better way to conceptualize it than talk about a little project that I started. So, let me talk about the process first. So typically the process that we would recommend is figure out your audience and objectives. You need to know the audience. You need to know what the overall objectives are of this project. Figure out your value proposition. Where do we provide value to our clients? And from there, you can start to understand what questions you need to answer. And then I built a small ideation matrix that you can basically look at and say, okay, what do I want to do? Is it a web application? Is it content-based? And it'll kind of give you a bit of a breakdown of budget and things like that. So I was thinking about the whole audience piece and how do I contextualize that in some of the templates, and I was thinking about a little project that I started. So that's my family on the right. I'm including a 3-month-old that was just born recently, so I have to update this photo. That's me over there, and these are some dahlias that I grow in my backyard. So I was inspired by a friend of mine who I'll show you what he's got going on a little bit later on. And I started growing tons of dahlia plants in my backyard. Like basically, I'm putting in a small little flower farm, and I've sort of become known in the neighborhood as the dahlia guy. And all of my guy friends are constantly coming over to get bouquets for their wives and for their houses. And originally, I was like, this would be a really cool way of introducing my little kids to entrepreneurship, which I'm very passionate about, getting them outside, and working together on something that we can kind of grow together over the years. So I've been at it for 2 seasons, and I came from zero knowledge, and I completely messed up my first season. I actually dug up all the tubers and wasn't exactly sure how to split them up so that I could keep plants going for the next season, and I destroyed them all by accident. So I am a customer, I'm a potential primary target for someone. I'm trying to learn, and I'm trying to find as much information as possible. So the first canvas is the audience canvas. So you really want to kind of start to prioritize your audience tiers. For some nurseries, I might be more on the tertiary, maybe even quaternary tier, and I might not be a primary audience, but for some, I might be primary, the small local nursery around the corner. So you're going to map out all of your audiences, and also sort of take stock of, who are you actually serving with this initiative? Are you trying to target one primary audience that is the most important to your business, or are you potentially tackling a couple different audiences? Summarize them, add in their goals and tasks, add in their pain points. I highly recommend also, at some point, if you go through these exercises, it's really good to go through it again with actual customers, because oftentimes you'll find that you're making assumptions, and some of them might be right, some of them might be wrong. The second exercise is our objectives canvas. So this kind of gives you a bit of a frame of why are you doing this. There needs to be some sort of business interest. You're not going to invest all of this money for no reason. You need to think about what the objectives are. So when it comes to UX and brand, those are usually qualitative. We want to be a brand leader or a thought leader in this space. And then working through financial conversion and efficiency, they may not all apply, but you may be thinking, okay, do we have some sales metrics that we're actually trying to impact? Do we have any conversion metrics we're trying to impact? Are we trying to get people from this marketing initiative to our website or to an order? And then basically record all that data. And then this is a really, really valuable exercise. And I recommend doing this quite often, maybe once every 6 months, once a year even. So basically, the value prop canvas, you think about your target audience and they're the square on the right, and you start to list, what are all the jobs that they need to do within their role. So, if you take me for an example, I need to plan the garden, I need to consider where I'm putting things based on sunlight, which I messed up the first year. I need to water, I need to buy equipment, what kind of equipment. And then what are the gains and pains of all that? The gains are having a wonderful garden, and I really do enjoy going over to someone's house, and instead of bringing a bottle of wine, I usually bring a bunch of flowers. What are the pains? And then you start to map out your own organization and your products and services, the gain creators, so how are you helping me to achieve those gains, and the pain relievers. And then from there, you'll have a really good understanding of where your business matches your client needs, and you can start to actually filter down and think about, what are the topics, what are the problems that I'm trying to solve. The last piece is the ideation matrix, and this includes a whole bunch of ideas in terms of different directions you could take, very high level. What does an investment look like in that? What is the complexity, and then what type of internal capabilities do you need to have? So, an example is content is pretty cost effective, but you need consistency. You need to start thinking about internal workflows. How do you actually deliver that type of content? And then the last little image I wanted to show you is, this is who I'm learning from. This is a friend of mine. His name's Andrew, and he's nicknamed himself the Dahlia Mandrew. And this is his front yard in London, Ontario. He has something like 1,800 plants and in his front yard. And he started just on a whim. He just randomly started one day, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And I've been kind of following him. And he basically documented his journey while he was doing it from the ground up. So 5 plants, 10 plants, 1,800 plants. He's documented his journey, and anytime I have a question, I'm like, oh yeah, Andrew probably has a video on this. And lo and behold, he'll have a video on everything from pruning to what stakes to buy, what string to put up to stake your plants. And he's the only person I know or that I've seen, and I'm obviously actively looking at this stuff, that is creating this kind of content around gardening and creating a farm, a little flower farm in your backyard. By the way, this is not his full-time job. This is just the summer months, so he dedicates a lot of time to this. And he sells flowers to all sorts of people and small businesses, and it's pretty amazing. At the end of the day, people don't buy products, they're buying solutions. So that frame of thinking really helps when it comes to marketing your services and products.